The afternoon sun painted the sky orange over Vastera Colony when 7-year-old Danny spotted trouble heading toward the park. 3 large dragon juveniles flew in formation, their scales gleaming dark purple and bronze. Danny recognized them immediately. They were the warrior caste kids who always picked on smaller dragons. His best friend Rico was practicing figure eights above the crystal formations. The young dragon's blue-silver scales caught the light beautifully as he banked and turned. Rico was smaller than most dragons his age, which made him an easy target for bullies. But he was also the kindest friend Danny had ever known. "Hey, ground crawler lover." The biggest dragon, called Thorn, landed with a heavy thump that shook the ground. His 2 friends flanked him on either side. Still playing with the soft skin? Rico descended quickly and positioned himself between Danny and the bullies. "Leave him alone. Danny is my friend." "Friend?" Thorn laughed, smoke puffing from his nostrils. "Dragons don't need human friends, especially not weak dragons who can barely keep up in flight training." Danny stepped forward even though his heart hammered in his chest. "Rico flies great. You're just jealous because he's nicer than you'll ever be." The 3 bullies snorted with amusement. One of them, a lean dragon named Scales, flicked his tail dismissively. "Goo, the little human has a mouth. Too bad his pet dragon has no backbone." "I'm not weak," Rico said quietly, but Danny could hear the hurt in his voice. "Prove it then," Thorn challenged. "Race us through the canyon rings. Unless you're too scared." Danny grabbed Rico's foreleg. "Don't. They're trying to trick you." But Rico's pride was wounded. He had been practicing so hard, trying to prove himself to the other dragons. "I'll race you, and I'll win." Thorn's eyes gleamed with something nasty. "Excellent. First one through all 7 rings and back wins. Standard rules apply." Danny didn't like how Thorn emphasized those last words. Something felt wrong. But Rico was already spreading his wings, determination blazing in his golden eyes. The 5 of them moved to the canyon edge where the ancient stone rings hung, suspended by magnetic fields. Dragons used them for training, weaving through at high speeds to build agility and precision. Danny had watched Rico practice dozens of times. His friend knew these rings perfectly. "On my count," Scales announced. 3, 2, 1, fly." The 4 dragons launched into the air. Danny ran to the canyon edge to watch, his stomach tight with worry. Rico shot forward with impressive speed, his smaller size letting him dart through the first ring ahead of the others. For a moment, Danny felt hope surge in his chest. Then he saw what the bullies were doing. As they flew, Thorn and Scales positioned themselves on either side of Rico while the 3rd dragon dropped back. Their movements were coordinated, practiced. They had done this before. Rico pulled ahead through the 3rd ring, focused entirely on flying his best. He didn't notice when Scales' tail spikes extended, sharpened points glinting in the sunlight. Danny screamed a warning, but his voice was lost in the wind and distance that 8T the 5th ring, Scales struck. His tail whipped sideways, and his spikes raked across Rico's left wing membrane. The sound of tearing reached Danny's ears a second later. Rico's flight pattern immediately went chaotic. He tried to compensate, but his wing wouldn't respond correctly. The wing cycle, the complex biological system that let dragons control their flight, had been damaged. Rico tumbled sideways, clipping the 6th ring with his shoulder. The impact sent him spinning down toward the crystal formations below. He crashed hard into a cluster of purple crystals that shattered under his weight. The bullies completed the course and circled back, laughing as they flew away toward the dragon settlement. Danny scrambled down the canyon wall, sliding on loose rocks and scraping his hands raw. He didn't care. "Rico, Rico, I'm coming." When he reached his friend, Danny's heart broke. Rico lay among the broken crystals, his left wing twisted at an unnatural angle. The beautiful blue-silver scales were scraped and bleeding in several places. But worse than the physical damage was the look in Rico's eyes. The young dragon stared at his ruined wing with complete devastation. "Danny," Rico's voice came out as a whisper. "My wing cycle. I can feel it. Something's broken inside. Not just the membrane. The whole system. Dragons could sense their wing cycles the way humans could feel their heartbeats. It was the core of their identity, their connection to the sky. Without it functioning properly, a dragon was earthbound forever. Tears began to leak from Rico's eyes, immediately turning to small puffs of steam in the cool air. I'll never fly right again. The healers can't fix wing cycle damage this bad. I've heard them talk about it. I'm going to be a ground walker. In Dragon Society, being permanently grounded was a shame that followed you forever. Rico's whole future had just shattered along with those crystals. Danny threw his arms around his friend's neck, ignoring the heat from Rico's scales. His mind raced. There had to be something, someone, that had hit him. The answer had been there all along. Don't cry, Danny said firmly, pulling back to look directly into Rico's golden eyes. He put every bit of certainty he possessed into his voice. My elder brother can fix it. Rico blinked through his tears. Danny, dragon wing cycles are too complex. Even our best healers, Ben, can fix anything, Danny interrupted. You've never met him, but I promise. He fixed the hydroponic systems when everyone said they were dead. He fixed Mr. Peterson's hover chair after 3 mechanics gave up. He even fixed that old music box that belonged to my mom, and it had 1,000 tiny pieces. But this is different. He built his own arm after he lost his real one in the war. Danny continued, his child's faith unshakable. If he can build an arm that works as good as a real one, he can fix your wing cycle. I know he can. Rico wanted to believe. Danny could see it in his eyes, that tiny spark of hope fighting against despair. You really think so? I don't think so. I know so. Danny stood up and tugged at Rico's good foreleg. Come on, we're going to the human settlement. Ben will be in his workshop. He's always in his workshop after lunch. Slowly, painfully, Rico climbed his feet. His damaged wing hung limply at his side. Each movement made him wince, but he followed Danny up the canyon path. The young dragon limped heavily, using his tail for balance. Yes, they walked. Rico kept glancing at his ruined wing. The membrane had a long tear, but the whole structure felt wrong. The wing cycle's rhythmic pulse, usually as steady as breathing, stuttered and skipped irregularly. Every failed beat reminded him of what he'd lost. But ahead of him, 7-year-old Danny walked with absolute confidence, never once looking back to see if Rico was keeping up. The boy simply knew his friend would follow. That certainty was infectious. That be why the time they reached the edge of the human settlement, Rico had stopped crying. He hurt everywhere, and his future looked dark. But somewhere in his chest, beneath the pain and fear, a small seed of belief had taken root. Maybe, just maybe, Danny was right. Maybe his elder brother really could fix the impossible. The workshop district smelled like metal and oil and electricity. Rico had never been to the human settlement before, and everything seemed strange to him. The buildings were small and square, nothing like the sweeping curves of dragon architecture. Humans rushed past on their business, most giving the injured dragon sympathetic looks, but not stopping to help. They were used to seeing Danny with his dragon friend. This way, Danny said, pulling Rico toward a large building with an open front. Inside, benches covered in tools lined the walls. Machines Rico couldn't identify hummed and beeped. A half-assembled hover bike sat in one corner. Chemical smells mixed with the scent of heated metal emptied the back of the workshop. A young man bent over a mining rig's exposed engine. He wore stained work clothes and had protective goggles pushed up on his forehead. His left arm below the elbow was clearly mechanical, a prosthetic that moved with perfect fluidity as he adjusted something deep in the engine. Grease covered both his real and artificial hands equally. Ben, Danny called out. The man looked up and smiled. He had the same brown eyes as Danny, but his face was older, marked by experiences a 7-year-old couldn't understand yet. Ben was 22, but sometimes he looked much older. Other times, when he smiled at his little brother, he looked young again. Hey, Danny boy, what brings you to? Ben stopped mid-sentence as he saw Rico behind his brother. His expression shifted immediately from casual greeting to focused concern. What happened? Bullies happened, Danny said angrily. They hit Rico's wing during a race. On purpose. and now his wing cycle is broken. Ben wiped his hands on a rag and walked over. He moved with a slight limp, another souvenir from his time in the Frontier Wars. Up close, Rico could see scars on Ben's neck and forearm. This human had seen real combat. Dragons respected warriors, and despite his size and soft skin, Ben clearly was one. "Can I take a look?" Ben asked Rico directly, treating the young dragon with the same respect he would give an adult. Rico extended his damaged wing. Even the small movement hurt. The membrane hung in tatters, and the whole structure trembled with unnatural spasms. Inside, the wing cycle kept misfiring, sending confused signals through his nervous system. Ben examined the injury carefully. His prosthetic hand moved with surprising gentleness, fingers probing along the wing bones and testing the membrane edges. He pulled out a small device from his pocket and held it near the damaged area. It beeped softly and displayed readings Rico couldn't interpret. "Tell me what you feel," Ben said. Like static, Rico tried to explain. "Normally my wing cycle pulses steady, like breathing. It coordinates everything automatically. But now it skips and jumps. Sometimes it fires when it shouldn't. Sometimes it doesn't fire at all." Ben nodded, still examining. "The wing cycle is the biological system that manages your flight, correct? It's part nerve cluster, part organic computer, sort of," Rico said, surprised the human knew anything about dragon physiology. "It processes balance, air resistance, membrane tension, everything. It lets us think about where we want to go, and our wings just know how to get us there. Like how humans don't think about walking," Ben murmured. "We just walk. The coordination happens below conscious thought." "Exactly." Danny sat down next to Rico and held his claw. The young dragon appreciated the gesture. Physical pain he could handle, but the deeper fear of never flying again threatened to overwhelm him. Ben straightened up and met Rico's eyes. "I won't lie to you. This is bad. The membrane tear is the least of your problems. Your wing cycle has structural damage. I can see it on my scanner. Some of the crystalline matrices are fractured and the neural pathways are disrupted." Rico felt his heart sink. "So you can't fix it either." "I didn't say that," Ben corrected gently. "I said it's bad. There's a difference." Hope flickered again, but Rico tried to crush it. Hope hurt more than acceptance. Dragon healers can't repair wing cycle damage this severe. They've said so in their teaching sessions. Once the crystalline matrices fracture, that's it. Game over. Dragon healers aren't human engineers, Ben said with a slight smile. He looked at his little brother. "Danny seems pretty convinced I can help. He tell you about some of my previous impossible projects?" "He mentioned your arm," Rico said, glancing at the prosthetic. Ben flexed his artificial fingers. "Lost it 3 years ago during an extraction mission. Blast from a plasma rifle caught me wrong. Field medics saved my life, but the arm was gone. When I got back to civilization, they wanted to give me a standard prosthetic. Basic model, limited function. I said no thanks and built this instead." The prosthetic hand picked up a tiny screw from the workbench and held it delicately between thumb and forefinger. "Full sensation, strength equal to my real arm, and it doesn't get tired. Took me 4 months of trial and error, but I figured it out." "Know what?" Rico shook his head. "Because I refused to accept that losing my arm meant losing my ability to do precision work. Everyone said it was impossible to get full sensation back. They said the neural interface would never be stable enough. They were wrong." Ben set the screw down. "I'm good at proving people wrong about what's impossible. But dragon biology is different. All biology is different," Ben interrupted. "That's what makes it interesting. Look, I spent 2 years as a combat engineer fixing equipment in situations where failure meant people died. I learned to adapt, to think sideways, to find solutions nobody else considered. That's what humans do best. We're not the strongest or the fastest or the toughest. We're the most stubborn." Danny squeezed Rico's claw. "See? I told you." Ben walked to a computer terminal and started pulling up files. "I've got medical databases on dragon physiology. Stuff from the colony's research division. I've also got contacts at the university who owe me favors. And I've got something dragon healers don't have." "What?" Rico asked. "A completely fresh perspective," Ben said. Dragon healers have centuries of established medical practice. That's good for most things, but terrible for impossible problems. They know too much about what can be done. I don't have that limitation. I don't know what's impossible for dragons because I'm not a dragon. He turned back to face Rico. Here's what I'm proposing. Give me 3 days. Let me study your wing cycle, run tests, consult with people smarter than me in specific fields. If after 3 days I don't think I can help, I'll tell you honestly. But if I find a solution, even a crazy one, we try it. Deal. Rico looked at Danny. The little boy's face shone with absolute faith in his brother. Then Rico looked at Ben, at the prosthetic arm that shouldn't work as well as it did, at the confident stance of a human who had survived war and injury and come out stronger. Deal, Rico said. Good. Ben grabbed a medical kit from a shelf. First things first, I need to stabilize that wing so you don't damage it further. Then I need detailed scans. This is going to be a long night. I can stay, right? Danny asked. You can stay, Ben confirmed. But no complaining when you get sleepy. I won't get sleepy, Danny promised, already yawning. Ben smiled and got to work. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, cleaning Rico's wounds and applying bandages that felt cool against the dragon scales. The prosthetic arm worked seamlessly alongside the real one, both moving with identical precision to Ben work. He asked questions. Detailed questions about how flight felt, how the wing cycle responded in different situations, what Rico experienced during the crash. He took notes constantly, building a picture of the problem from Rico's own testimony. Other humans came and went from the workshop, most offering words of encouragement to Rico. A few stopped to help Ben, holding equipment or fetching supplies. The dragon noticed something interesting. None of them treated his injury as hopeless. They talked about it like it was just another challenging repair job. Maybe that was the difference. Dragon healers saw a sacred biological system too complex to fix. Human engineers saw a system that was broken and therefore could be repaired. It was all in how you looked at the problem. Rico watched Ben work and felt something he hadn't felt since the crash. Not just hope, but actual belief. This strange human with his mechanical arm and his war scars and his little brother's absolute faith might actually do the impossible. Danny fell asleep in a chair around midnight, curled up with his jacket as a blanket. Rico remained awake, watching Ben analyze scan results on multiple screens. The human never stopped working, never showed frustration, just kept methodically building his understanding of the problem. Get some rest, Ben finally said around 3 in the morning. Tomorrow we start the real work. Rico closed his eyes, but sleep was slow to come. His wing throbbed, and his wing cycle continued its irregular stuttering. But for the first time since the crash, he didn't feel alone with his fear. Word spread fast through the colony. By morning, 3 dragon healers arrived at Ben's workshop. Elder Skyward led them, an ancient dragon whose scales had faded to pale silver with age. His apprentice, a serious young dragon named Whisper, carried a medical kit. The third healer was middle-aged, called Grandmother Ash despite being male. Dragons had different naming traditions than humans. Danny woke to find the workshop crowded with dragons and humans. He immediately went to Rico's side. His friend looked exhausted, having barely slept. Step aside, human, Elder Skyward said, not unkindly. Let us examine the damage properly. Ben moved back but didn't leave. He watched carefully as the dragon healers conducted their examination. They used methods completely different from his scanners and computers. Whisper held his claws over Rico's wing and hummed at specific frequencies. Grandmother Ash burned herbs and studied the smoke patterns. Elder Skyward simply closed his eyes and seemed to sense the injury through methods Ben couldn't understand. After 20 minutes, Elder Skyward opened his eyes. His expression was grave. The wing cycle matrix is fractured in 4 locations. The neural pathways show severe disruption. The organic gyroscope has been knocked out of alignment by at least 15 degrees. Can you fix it? Rico asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. No, Elder Skyward said simply. I am sorry, young one. This damage is beyond our capabilities. The wing cycle is too integrated into your nervous system. Any attempt to repair it risks causing worse damage, possibly paralysis of your entire left side. Rico's head dropped. Danny grabbed his claw tightly. So he'll never fly again? Danny demanded. He may glide short distances in time. Grandmother Ash said gently. With physical therapy, he can regain perhaps 30% function. But true flight, controlled aerial maneuvers, anything requiring precision? No, those days are over. That's not acceptable, Ben said quietly. The three dragon healers turned to look at him. Elder Skyward's expression was patient but firm. Young human, I understand you wish to help. Your intentions honor you. But dragon physiology is not like your machines. We cannot simply replace broken parts. The wing cycle is living tissue, crystalline matrices grown over years, neural pathways established since hatching. It is impossibly complex. I've heard that word before, Ben said. Impossible. People use it a lot when I said I was going to build my own prosthetic arm with full sensation. He held up his artificial hand. They used it when I said I could repair the colony's primary water recycler after the manufacturer declared it unsalvageable. They used it when I volunteered to defuse a damaged reactor core during the war, when everyone else said it would explode if anyone touched it. Elder Skyward studied Ben with new interest. You defused an unstable reactor? With about 90 seconds to spare, Ben confirmed. My point is that impossible just means nobody's figured it out yet. I'm good at figuring things out. The wing cycle is sacred, Whisper said sharply. It is the gift that makes dragons what we are. It is not a machine for human tinkering. I'm not planning to tinker, Ben said calmly. I'm planning to repair. There's a difference. Elder Skyward held up a claw for silence. Explain your approach, human. How would you attempt what we cannot? Ben pulled up his scans on a large screen. Last night, I spent 8 hours studying Rico's wing cycle and comparing it to every piece of dragon medical literature I could access. I also consulted with Dr. Graves, our xenobiologist, and Professor Lin, who specializes in biomechanical systems. We found something interesting. He highlighted several areas on the scan. Your healing traditions treat the wing cycle as purely biological. You work with herbs, frequency resonance, energy manipulation. All valid approaches for normal healing. But the wing cycle isn't just biological. It's a hybrid system. Hybrid? Grandmother Ash leaned forward with interest. Part organic, part crystalline, part something that resembles quantum entanglement in how it processes information, Ben explained. The crystalline matrices aren't just storage. They're computational elements. They work like organic computers, processing flight data faster than conscious thought. We know this, Elder Skyward said, but you treat it only as a biological system, Ben countered. What if we also treat it as an engineering problem? The crystalline matrices are fractured. In human technology, we've developed ways to repair crystalline structures using biocompatible bonding agents. We've created neural bridging techniques for patients with spinal injuries. We've built quantum computers that operate on similar principles to your wing cycles. Whisper hissed with disapproval. You would use crude human technology on sacred dragon biology? I would use whatever works, Ben said simply. He looked at Rico. The choice is yours. The healers say you'll have maybe 30% function eventually. I'm saying I think I can get you to 90% or better. But it's experimental. There are risks. What kind of risks? Rico asked. Ben didn't sugarcoat it. If I'm wrong about how the crystalline matrices integrate with your neural system, I could cause permanent damage. You might lose all function in that wing instead of the 70% you're losing now. There's also a small chance of neural feedback that could affect your other systems. Pain, muscle spasms, possibly worse. The workshop fell silent. Danny looked between his brother and his best friend, his young face tight with worry. But you believe you can fix it? Rico asked. I believe I can try, Ben said. And based on everything I've learned in the last 8 hours, I believe I have a real chance of succeeding. Better than 50-50 odds. Maybe as high as 70%. Elder Skyward spoke up. Young Rico, you understand what he offers? A dangerous gamble versus a certain but limited future. I understand, Rico said. He looked at Danny, who nodded encouragement. Then he looked at Ben. You saved people during the war. You fixed things everyone said were broken. Danny believes in you completely. That's enough for me. I want you to try. Whisper protested. Elder, this is madness. Human medicine on a dragon wing cycle? It violates every principle of our healing arts. Perhaps that's exactly what's needed, Grandmother Ash said thoughtfully. We have followed our principles and declared this injury impossible to treat. Maybe impossible problems require unprincipled solutions. He looked at Ben. What do you need from us? Your knowledge, Ben said immediately. I can handle the engineering aspects, but I need to understand the biological side better. How the wing cycle integrates with dragon consciousness, how it develops, what it needs to function. If you're willing to work with me, combine your healing knowledge with human technology, we might actually pull this off. Elder Skyward was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Very well, we will assist. But I want it stated clearly that this is experimental. If it fails, the responsibility lies with all of us who participated. Agreed, Ben said. When do we start? Rico asked. Now, Ben replied. We've got 3 days. Day 1 is detailed study and preparation. Day 2 is the actual repair procedure. Day 3 is recovery and initial testing. After that, we'll know if we succeeded or failed. He began assigning tasks. Dr. Graves would work with Grandmother Ash on neural pathway mapping. Professor Lin would consult with Whisper on crystalline matrix structures. Ben himself would design the repair procedure with Elder Skyward's guidance. Various technicians and assistants were given specific research assignments. Danny appointed himself Rico's official comfort provider. He sat next to his friend and told stories to distract him from worry. Other young humans from the colony came by to wish Rico luck. A few even brought gifts, snacks, drawings, a small carved crystal that one girl said was for good fortune. The dragon community learned what was happening. Some were skeptical, saying humans should not meddle in dragon medicine. Others were curious, even hopeful. A few young dragons came to watch through the workshop windows, their eyes wide with interest. Through it all, Ben worked. He filled notebooks with calculations, ran simulation after simulation on his computers, and consulted with experts through video calls. The prosthetic arm never slowed, never needed rest. He worked straight through lunch and dinner, surviving on protein bars and water. Evening arrived. Ben finally stepped back from his workstation and looked at the assembled plans. Okay, he said to the room. I think I've got it. The procedure will take approximately 6 hours. We'll need to construct a temporary support framework using flexible polymers to stabilize the wing during neural regeneration. We'll use biocompatible crystalline threads to bridge the fractured matrices. And we'll need to recalibrate the organic gyroscope using a combination of frequency resonance and microadjustments. Elder Skyward studied the plans. This is highly unconventional. That's kind of my specialty, Ben said. If even half of this works, it will revolutionize how we approach wing cycle injuries, Grandmother Ash admitted. Whisper still looked doubtful, but said nothing. Ben walked over to Rico. Last chance to back out. Once we start tomorrow, we're committed. Rico looked at Danny, who gave him a thumbs up. Then he looked at Ben. My brother believes in you. So do I. Then get some rest, Ben said. Tomorrow is going to be a very long day for both of us. Day 2 started before sunrise. Ben had converted his entire workshop into a makeshift surgical theater. Medical equipment borrowed from the colony hospital surrounded a specially built platform sized for a young dragon. Monitoring screens lined one wall, displaying readouts that combined human medical data with dragon healer assessment techniques. Rico lay on the platform, trying not to show his fear. Danny held his claw on one side while Grandmother Ash stood on the other, humming a calming resonance that helped relax dragon nervous systems. We're going to use a local neural block, Ben explained as he prepared his instruments. You'll be conscious, but you won't feel pain in your wing. I need you awake because I need you to tell me what you're experiencing as we work. The wing cycle responds to your mental state, and I need real-time feedback. I understand, Rico said, though his voice shook slightly. Elder Skyward began the procedure with traditional dragon healing methods. He burned specific herbs and used frequency humming to prepare Rico's wing cycle for the intervention. "We are telling your body that healing is coming," he explained. "Dragon physiology responds to intention and energy. This primes your system to accept the repairs rather than reject them." Ben watched and learned. He had initial doubts about these methods, but the monitoring equipment showed clear changes in Rico's biosigns. Something was definitely happening. "Ready when you are," Elder Skyward said. Ben picked up a device that looked like a combination between a surgical laser and a tuning fork. Professor Lin had designed it specifically for this procedure, starting with the crystalline matrix repairs. "Rico, you're going to feel strange sensations. Describe everything." The device hummed to life. Ben worked with absolute precision, his prosthetic hand as steady as a machine, while his real hand made constant tiny adjustments. The beam of light touched the first fractured crystal structure inside Rico's wing. "It feels cold," Rico reported. "Like ice water in my veins. But not painful. Just strange." "Good. That's the bonding agent activating." Ben worked slowly, methodically. Each fractured crystal required individual attention. The biocompatible threads he was using would bridge the gaps and provide structural support, while Rico's own biology grew new crystal structures around them. Dr. Graves monitored neural activity. "Pathway response is positive. No signs of rejection." Whisper, despite his earlier skepticism, assisted by maintaining the frequency resonance that kept Rico's wing cycle stable during the procedure. The young dragon healer was fascinated despite himself. He had never seen human and dragon medicine working together like this. Hours passed. Ben never wavered, never rushed. Each movement was calculated, verified, and executed perfectly. The prosthetic arm proved invaluable, able to hold positions for extended periods without trembling from fatigue. "First matrix is stabilized," Ben announced. "3 more to go." Danny brought water and snacks for everyone except Ben, who refused to break his concentration. The boy sat next to Rico and talked quietly about school, about games they would play once Rico could fly again, about anything to keep his friend's spirits up. The second and third crystalline matrices went smoother than the first. Ben was learning as he worked, adapting his technique based on Rico's feedback and the monitoring data. Elder Skyward made suggestions that improved the integration between human technology and dragon biology. "This is remarkable," Grandmother Ash murmured, watching the screens. "I can see the neural pathways responding. They're already beginning to reroute around the damaged sections." The fourth matrix was the most damaged. The fractures extended deep, and multiple fragments have been knocked out of alignment. Ben studied it carefully before beginning. "This one is tricky," he admitted. "Rico, I need you to do something for me. I need you to think about flying. Not trying to fly, just remembering how it feels when everything works right." "Why?" Rico asked. "Because the wing cycle is partly controlled by your subconscious mind," Ben explained. "If you remember the correct feeling, your neural system will try to match that pattern. It'll help guide the repair." Rico closed his eyes and thought about flying, about the feeling of wind under his wings, the joy of a perfect barrel roll, the satisfaction of a smooth landing. As he remembered, the monitoring equipment showed increased activity in his wing cycle. "Perfect," Ben said. "Hold that feeling." He worked for 2 hours on the fourth matrix. Everyone in the room was tense, watching the delicate procedure. One mistake here could undo everything they'd accomplished. Ben's hands never shook. The prosthetic and the real worked in perfect harmony, making adjustments measured in micrometers. Finally, Ben stepped back. All 4 matrices are bridged and stabilized. Now comes the hard part. "That wasn't the hard part," Danny asked nervously. "That was the delicate part," Ben said. "Now we have to recalibrate the organic gyroscope. That requires physically adjusting its position while the wing cycle is active. It's like performing brain surgery while the patient solves math problems." Elder Skyward and Whisper worked together on this phase. They used traditional dragon healing techniques to gently stimulate the gyroscope, while Ben made physical adjustments with specially designed microtools. It was a perfect fusion of two completely different medical philosophies. Rico reported feeling dizzy, then balanced, then dizzy again as they searched for the correct alignment. The process took another hour of minute adjustments and constant testing. There, Elder Skyward said suddenly. That's the harmonic resonance we need. Ben locked the gyroscope in position using a dissolvable polymer support. This will hold it steady for the next week while your body heals around it. The support will dissolve naturally as you recover. The final phase was neural pathway repair. Dr. Graves and Grandmother Ash collaborated on this, using a combination of human stem cell techniques and dragon energy healing. They rebuilt the torn pathways using a scaffold of biocompatible materials that would guide Rico's own regeneration 0.6 hours after they started. Ben finally set down his tools. That's everything we could do surgically. Now it's up to Rico's body to accept the repairs. Rico's wing was wrapped in medical bandages covered with monitoring sensors. The young dragon looked exhausted, but his eyes were bright. "How do you feel?" Danny asked. "Tired," Rico admitted. "But my wing cycle, it's not stuttering anymore. I can feel it running steady." Weak but steady. The room erupted in relieved conversation. Elder Skyward examined Rico carefully. The immediate integration is successful. Your body is accepting the repairs, but we won't know the full outcome for several days. "He needs rest now," Ben said. He looked as tired as Rico felt, but he was smiling. No flying, no wing movements beyond basic stretching. Let everything heal. They moved Rico to a recovery area that had been set up in an adjacent room. Danny refused to leave his friend's side and curled up on a cushion next to the dragon's platform. Ben stepped outside for the first time in hours. The sun was setting again. He had worked through an entire day without noticing. Professor Lin found him standing in the doorway. "That was incredible," the professor said. "You combined two completely different medical systems and made them work together." "It wasn't just me," Ben said. Elder Skyward's knowledge was essential. Grandmother Ash understood things about dragon physiology I never could. Whisper's frequency control was perfect. Dr. Graves handled the neural aspects better than I could. It was a team effort. "Still," Professor Lin said, "you led that team. You brought everyone together and made something impossible happen. That's what humans do, isn't it? We bring people together and solve problems cooperatively." Ben smiled. "I suppose it is." Inside, Elder Skyward was having a similar conversation with his fellow healers. That human accomplished in hours what we declared impossible. Perhaps we have been too rigid in our thinking. "I will admit I was wrong about human medicine," Whisper said grudgingly. "Their technology, combined with our healing wisdom, created something neither could achieve alone. This should not be a single incident," Grandmother Ash said thoughtfully. "We should establish a formal program. Dragon healers and human doctors working together. Imagine what we could accomplish." Elder Skyward nodded slowly. "Yes, but first, let us see if young Rico can fly again. That will be the true test." In the recovery room, Rico was already asleep. His wing cycle hummed with a steady rhythm, still weak but growing stronger with each pulse. Danny slept beside him, one hand resting on his friend's foreleg. Ben checked on them before heading to his own quarters. He paused in the doorway, watching the boy and the dragon sleep peacefully together. When Danny had run into his workshop 2 days ago with an impossible request, Ben could have said no. He could have explained all the reasons why it wouldn't work. He could have been sensible and cautious, but his little brother had looked at him with complete faith and said his elder brother could fix anything. How could he disappoint that? Besides, impossible was just another word for a problem nobody had solved yet. And Ben had always been good at solving problems. 3 days after the surgery, Rico stood at the edge of the training grounds. His wing had healed faster than Ben predicted. The monitoring sensors showed strong integration between the repairs and Rico's natural biology. The crystalline matrices were functioning at 85% capacity and improving daily. The neural pathways had regenerated completely. The organic gyroscope held steady. All the data said Rico should be able to fly. But data was one thing. Reality was another. The crowd had gathered. Word spread through both dragon and human communities that today was the test flight. Young dragons clustered in groups, whispering excitedly. Human children pressed against the safety barriers. Adults from both species watched with interest. The three bullies were there too. Thorn, Scales, and their friends stood off to one side with their parents. The elder dragons had been furious when they learned what happened. The three juveniles had been punished severely, and today they were required to watch Rico's attempt and to apologize publicly if he succeeded. Ben checked Rico's wing one final time. The bandages were gone now, replaced by a few monitoring patches that would track performance during flight. The repaired wing looked almost normal except for thin lines where the crystalline matrices had been bridged. "How does it feel?" Ben asked. Rico flexed his wing experimentally. "Strong. Maybe stronger than before, actually. But I'm scared." "That's normal," Ben said. "You crashed hard. Your brain remembers that. Fear is your mind trying to protect you from getting hurt again." Danny hugged Rico's leg. "You can do it. I know you can." Elder Skyward approached. He had been monitoring Rico's recovery closely and declared himself amazed at the results. "Young one, there is no shame in being afraid. Even the oldest dragons feel fear before difficult flights. But what if I can't do it?" Rico asked quietly. "What if my mind remembers how to fly, but my body doesn't respond right? What if I fall again? Then we catch you," a voice said. Grandmother Ash landed nearby, along with several other adult dragons. "We will fly beneath you. If you fall, we will be there." Whisper joined them. The young healer had become fascinated by the hybrid medical approach and spent the last 3 days learning human medical techniques. "I have examined your wing cycle thoroughly. Physically, you are ready. The rest is in your mind." Rico looked at all the faces watching him. So many expectations. So much pressure. His legs felt weak and his wing cycle, though functioning perfectly, felt foreign somehow, like it belonged to someone else. Danny climbed up on a rock so he could look Rico in the eyes. "Hey, remember when I fell off the climbing wall at school?" Rico nodded. Danny had broken his arm in 2 places. "I was so scared to climb again," Danny continued. "But you told me something. You remember what you said? I told you that falling doesn't mean you can't climb," Rico said slowly. "It just means you learned where not to put your feet." "Exactly," Danny said. "You crashed. You learned something. Now you know to watch for bullies during races. But that crash doesn't mean you can't fly. It just means you're smarter about it now." Rico felt something loosen in his chest. The 7-year-old boy was right. He had been so focused on the fear of falling again that he forgot the joy of flying in the first place. "You trust me, right?" Danny asked. "Of course. And you trust Ben? He fixed your wing when everyone said it was impossible." "Yes." "Then trust yourself," Danny said simply. "Your wing works. Your wing cycle is good. The only thing holding you back is being scared. And being scared is okay, but you can't let it win." Ben put his hand on Rico's shoulder. "No pressure, but I did spend 6 hours repairing crystalline matrices in your wing. Will be nice to see if it actually works." Despite his fear, Rico laughed. Leave it to humans to make jokes at important moments that he walked to the center of the training grounds. The adult dragons positioned themselves in a loose formation below, ready to catch him if needed. Ben and Danny stood at the edge with the other spectators. Rico extended both wings. The left wing, the repaired one, responded perfectly. He could feel the wing cycle processing information, making tiny adjustments to membrane tension and angle. It felt right. It felt like flying should feel that he crouched and leaped into the air. His wings caught the wind, and for a moment he was airborne. Then fear shot through him. The memory of falling, of tumbling out of control, of hitting the crystals. His concentration broke and his wing cycle stuttered. He came down hard but managed to land on his feet. Not a crash, but definitely not a flight, the crowd murmured. Thorn smirked until his father cuffed him upside the head. "Try again," Danny called out. "First pancakes are always flat." Rico didn't know what that meant, but he appreciated the encouragement. He shook out his wings and tried again. This time he made it 20 feet before fear took over and he had to land on the 3rd attempt. He managed a full circle of the training grounds, but his flight was jerky and uncertain. The wing cycle worked fine, but his mind kept interfering, second-guessing every movement. Rico landed and sat down heavily, frustration overwhelming him. I can't do it. The wing is fixed, but I'm broken. Ben walked over and sat down next to him. You're not broken. You're just in your own way. Your conscious mind is trying to control something that should be automatic. It's like when I first got my prosthetic arm. I had to relearn how to trust my body to do things without overthinking. How did you manage it? I stopped trying to control it and started trusting it, Ben said. Look, your wing cycle is working perfectly. I can see it on the monitors. Every time you start a fly, your systems engage exactly right. Then your conscious mind panics and takes over and messes everything up. You need to let go. I don't know how. Danny climbed onto Rico's back and sat between his wing joints. Then don't think about flying. Think about me. If you fall, I fall. You won't let me fall, will you? Danny, no. Ben started to protest, but Danny ignored him. You trust yourself to keep me safe, Danny said confidently. So stop worrying about you and worry about me instead. Now fly. It was completely reckless. It was probably against several safety regulations. It was also exactly what Rico needed. His fear was about himself, about failing, about getting hurt again. But Danny's safety was different. That wasn't about fear. That was about responsibility. Rico stood up carefully with Danny on his back. Hold on tight. Always do, Danny said, gripping the ridge between Rico's shoulders. Ben looked like he wanted to object, but grandmother, Ash, put a claw on his shoulder. Trust them. Your brother knows what he's doing. Rico spread his wings. He didn't think about flying. He thought about the small human boy on his back who believed in him completely. He couldn't let Danny down. He ran forward and leaped. His wings caught the air, and this time his wing cycle engaged smoothly. No estuterin, no hosetaschen. He wasn't flying for himself. He was flying to keep Danny safe. They rose steadily. 20 feet. 30. 50. Rico banked left in a smooth curve. His wing cycle hummed with perfect rhythm, processing information faster than thought. This was right. This was how flying was supposed to feel. Higher. Danny shouted with joy. Rico climbed. The ground fell away below them. He could see the entire colony spread out like a map. The wind rushed past his scales and Danny's laughter rang in his ears. He performed a gentle loop. Not the tight, aggressive maneuvers he used to practice, but a smooth, controlled arc that brought them back to level flight. His repaired wing worked flawlessly, responding to every command from his wing cycle without hesitation. Below, the crowd erupted in cheers. Dragons roared approval and humans shouted encouragement. Ben had tears in his eyes, but he was smiling. Rico descended gradually, making a wide spiral that brought them back to the training grounds. He landed with perfect precision, all 4 feet touching down simultaneously. Danny slid off his back and immediately hugged him. You did it. I knew you would. The crowd swarmed around them. Young dragons congratulated Rico, their eyes full of admiration. Human children wanted to hear every detail. Adult dragons and humans alike praised Ben's incredible work. Elder Skyward landed beside them. That was exceptional flying, young one. Your wing cycle shows no signs of strain or malfunction. You are completely healed. Thorn and the other bullies were pushed forward by their parents. Thorn looked like he was swallowing something bitter. I'm sorry, he said stiffly. What we did was wrong. Your flying it's actually pretty good. Pretty good. Scales elbowed him. Fine. It's really good, Thorn admitted. And the humans' repair work is incredible. I didn't think it was possible. Rico could have been angry. He could have held a grudge. But Danny's influence had rubbed off on him. Thank you for apologizing. Maybe someday we can race again. Fairly this time. Thorn looked surprised, then nodded. I'd like that. The celebration continued for hours. Ben was surrounded by dragons and humans wanting to know about his techniques. Elder Skyward announced plans for a formal medical exchange program between species. Whisper volunteered to be the first dragon to train in human medical technology. As evening approached and the crowd dispersed, Danny and Rico sat together watching the sunset. Ben joined them, looking exhausted but satisfied. Thank you, Rico said to both brothers. You gave me back the sky. You always had the sky, Danny said. We just helped you remember. Ben ruffled his little brother's hair. You know, when you told me your brother could fix anything, you put a lot of pressure on me. But you did fix it, Danny said simply. I knew you would. How are you so sure? Because you're my brother, Danny said like it was the most obvious thing in the world. And brothers always keep their promises. For months passed since Rico's first flight after the surgery. The young dragon's wing had healed completely, and his flying skills surpassed what they had been before the injury. The temporary support structures Ben installed had dissolved naturally, leaving no trace except perfectly functioning biological systems. But the real changes went far deeper than one repaired wing. The dragon and human communities had transformed. Elder Skyward and Ben established the Cross-Species Medical Initiative, a formal program where dragon healers and human doctors work together. 3 dragons were currently learning human medical techniques, while 5 human doctors studied traditional dragon healing methods. Whisper became the program's most enthusiastic participant. The young healer practically lived at Ben's workshop now, fascinated by human technology and eager to blend it with dragon wisdom. He had already helped treat 2 other dragons with injuries previously considered permanent. Grandmother Ash collaborated with Dr. Graves on a comprehensive study of wing cycle mechanics. Their joint paper would revolutionize understanding of dragon flight physiology and had applications for human aerospace engineering. The young dragons and human children played together constantly now. The barriers that once separated the species seemed silly in hindsight. Danny and Rico were heroes to the younger kids, living proof that friendship mattered more than scales or skin. Even the bullies had changed. Thor approached Rico one afternoon at the training grounds, looking uncomfortable but determined. Can you teach me that loop you did during your test flight? I've been trying to copy it, but I can't get the angle right. Rico could have refused, could have held onto his anger. Instead, he spent 2 hours coaching Thorn through the maneuver. By the end, Thorn could execute a decent loop, and both young dragons were laughing together. I really am sorry, Thorn said as they rested. About your wing. About being a jerk. You're actually a pretty cool dragon. You're not so bad yourself, Rico admitted. When you're not trying so hard to act tough. Scales and the 3rd bully started joining their practice sessions. Other young dragons came too, curious about the dragon who crashed and flew again. Rico found himself becoming a flight instructor of sorts, sharing what he learned about trusting your wing cycle and not overthinking that Ben's reputation spread beyond Vastera Colony. Other settlements contacted him about impossible problems. A mining station had a critical life support system failing. A research outpost needed their quantum computer repaired. A farming colony asked for help with dying crops. Ben helped them all, often by bringing together experts from different species and different disciplines. You're doing it again, Professor Lin told him one day as they worked on a particularly difficult engineering problem. Taking things everyone says are impossible and making them work. It's not that hard, Ben said, adjusting a circuit. You just need to ignore the people who say it can't be done and focus on figuring out how to do it. That's what makes you special, Professor Lin said. You don't accept limitations as final. None of you humans do. You keep pushing, keep trying, keep finding new solutions. Ben thought about that. Maybe it's because we're kind of fragile compared to most species. We don't have natural armor or wings or built-in weapons. So we got really good at fixing things, building things, and working together. It's how we survive. The Dragon Council invited Ben to speak at their annual gathering. It was the first time a human had been given that honor. Dragons from across the planet attended, curious about the engineer who accomplished what their best healers could not. Ben kept his speech simple. I didn't save Rico alone. Elder Skyward's knowledge was essential. Grandmother Ash understood things about dragon biology I never could. Whisper's frequency control was perfect. Dr. Graves handled neural systems better than I could. My little brother Danny gave Rico the courage to trust himself again. It was all of us together. He paused, looking at the assembled dragons. That's the real lesson here. Not that human technology is superior or that dragon healing is outdated. The lesson is that we're better together. Your species has wisdom and abilities we lack. We have tools and approaches you haven't tried. Separately, We're good. Together, we're exceptional. The applause from hundreds of dragons sounded like thunder. After the speech, an elderly dragon approached Ben. She was ancient, her scales nearly white with age, and she moved slowly with the help of a younger dragon assistant. "I'm Grandmother Sky," she said. Her voice was soft, but carried authority. "I was the head healer 60 years ago when wing cycle injuries were my specialty. I declared many young dragons permanently grounded because I knew of no way to help them." She looked at Ben with eyes that had seen decades of joy and sorrow. "You have given me a gift I never expected. Hope. Those dragons I failed, their children and grandchildren now, have options they did not have before. Thank you." Ben felt emotion tighten his throat. "I just try to help one scared kid. I didn't mean to change anything bigger. The best changes often start that way," Grandmother Sky said, with one person refusing to accept a sad ending. Back at Vastera Colony, Danny's school teacher asked him to tell the story of Rico's recovery to the class. Human and dragon children sat together as Danny explained what happened. He kept it simple, focused on the important parts. Rico got hurt really bad. Everyone said he'd never fly right again. But I knew my brother could fix it because Ben fixes impossible stuff all the time. I told Rico not to cry and to trust Ben. And Rico believed me, even though he was really scared. A young dragon raised her claw. "What if your brother couldn't fix it? What if Rico never flew again?" Danny thought about that. Then Ben would have tried something else. And if that didn't work, he would have tried another thing. And we all would have stayed friends with Rico, whether he could fly or not. Because that's what friends do. "But he did fix it," another child pointed out. "Yeah, he did," Danny agreed. But the important part wasn't the fixing. It was that everyone tried. Ben and Elder Skyward and all the healers and doctors worked together. Nobody gave up. That's the real story. The teacher smiled. "What did you learn from this experience, Danny?" "I learned that impossible just means nobody tried hard enough yet," Danny said. "And I learned that when different kinds of people work together, they can do amazing things. Also, I learned that Rico is a really good friend who trusted me even when he was super scared." That evening, Danny and Rico sat on their usual hill watching the sunset. It had become their spot, the place where they talked about important things. Rico's wing was fully healed now, stronger than ever. He could fly for hours without strain. "I'm going to try out for the aerial performance team," Rico announced. "The one that does shows for festivals." "That's great," Danny said. "You'll definitely make it." "I don't know. The tryouts are really hard." "So, you crashed into crystals and learned to fly again. You can handle some tryouts." Rico laughed. "Good point." He looked at his young friend seriously. "Danny, I need to tell you something. When I crashed, when my wing cycle broke, I wanted to give up. I was ready to accept being grounded forever. But you wouldn't let me. You said your brother could fix it with so much confidence that I had to believe you." "Ben's really good at fixing things," Danny said. "It wasn't just about Ben," Rico continued. "It was about you. You're 7 years old and you faced down dragon bullies, and you promised me something impossible, and you never doubted. Where does that come from? How did you know to trust so completely?" Danny shrugged. "Ben's my brother. Brothers keep their promises. And you're my brother too, even if you're a dragon. So I wasn't going to let you give up. I'm your brother." Rico asked softly. "Of course. Not by blood or eggs or whatever, but by choosing. I chose you as my brother, and you chose me. That's better than biology." Rico felt his eyes sting with happy tears. "Yeah, that is better." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. Below them, the colony bustled with evening activity. Dragons and humans moved together, working together, living together. The divisions that once seemed so important had faded. "Hey, Rico." "Yeah, promise me something," Danny said. "Promise that when you're older and some other kid has an impossible problem, you'll remember this. You'll remember that impossible doesn't mean it can't be done. It just means nobody figured it out yet." "I promise," Rico said. "And I'll tell them about a 7-year-old human boy who looked at his injured dragon friend and said, 'Don't cry. My elder brother can fix it,' and how I believed him. And was I right?" Danny asked with a grin. "You were right," Rico confirmed. Your elder brother did fix it, but you fixed something more important. You fixed my hope. Danny leaned against his friend's side. That's what brothers do. Human brothers, dragon brothers, doesn't matter. We help each other believe in impossible things. As darkness fell, other young dragons and human children found their way to the hill. It had become a gathering place, a symbol of the friendship between species. They sat together, talking and laughing, scales and skin side by side. Thorn arrived with scales and sat near Rico. Sorry we're late. Training ran long. No problem, Rico said. We were just talking about important stuff. Like what? Scales asked. Like how brothers keep their promises, Danny said. And how impossible is just another word for really hard. And how trust matters more than almost anything, Rico added. The group settled in, watching the stars emerge one by one. Somewhere in the colony, Ben was working on another impossible project. Elder Skyward was teaching human doctors about energy healing. Whisper was learning about neural interfaces. The world was changing one fixed wing at a time. Denny looked up at Rico and smiled. The dragon looked down at his young friend and smiled back. Neither had to say anything. They both understood. Some bonds transcended species. Some friendships defied logic. Some promises changed worlds. And sometimes, when a little boy told his dragon friend not to cry because his elder brother could fix anything, the impossible became real through nothing more than trust, determination, and the absolute certainty that brotherhood mattered more than broken wings. The title that started their story echoed in both their hearts. Don't cry, said little human boy. My elder brother can fix it. And his dragon friend believed him. That belief changed everything.